Good afternoon, everyone. I am C.R. Hall. I'm with the State Department of Education, the Office of Federal and State Accountability, specifically in the Innovation and Support Team. I'm the team lead, which really means the only authority I have is approve your days off. Other than that, I have no authority. So anything I say today, please don't go back to your district and say, well, CR said, so it's the law. No, it's not. I have a team of people that do help me out. One of them is over there is Pat Cincatelli. He is in our team, and he used to be a superintendent. Of course, then I've got my other boys that are making fun of me right now that were on my previous team. So they're going to give me a hard time and probably make obscene gestures from the back of the room, but it's okay. I still love them. But today we're going to be talking about pathways to flexibility. So just a little bit about me and where I've been. I realized a little bit ago I'm about on my 27th year of education. Can't believe I said that. With that being said, I've done everything. I taught special ed. I've been a middle school principal, a high school principal, an alternative school principal. Here at the State Department, there's nothing you can do that I haven't seen, heard, or smelled, and no, you cannot scare me. What scares me is the 5-year-olds that start biting. But other than that, there's nothing you can do. We're going to talk about pathways to flexibility today. So in my role in the innovation and support team, learned some things in the last couple months. I want to apologize on behalf of the state of South Carolina. We taught y'all wrong, so I'm going to teach you correctly and see if we can't get back on the same. Tell me about that. Just kidding. We can go this way. Joe. There we go. So what I'm going to talk about today is what flexibility is, the types of waivers and things that are available in some of our proficiency plans and flexibility plans to help you get some of those goals you need to get accomplished in those district strategic and renewal plans. I will call those DSSRs because I hate saying the 4 long words. So let's first talk about what flexibility is. Flexibility means to then easily adapt to different or changing requirements. And under Regulation 43-261, the South Carolina Department of Education may waive any regulation that would impede the implementation of the district strategic and school renewal plan. So we have the ability to let go of some things for a little bit if it's impeding your implementation of your DSSR. So there's some things, there's some waivers, there's schools of innovation, proficiency-based system, and a competency-based education. And we're going to talk about all of those. So the first one is a waiver. So a waiver can be used to waive any of the regulations that impede on the DSSR. Waivers are good for the entire life cycle of your DSSR. So if you turn in a waiver, let's say you've done your initial DSSR, we can't approve a waiver until we approve your DSSR. It's not you can't have an impediment until you turn something in. So you're going to turn that plan in, then you can do a waiver. And that waiver is for the life of that cycle. Now, let's say you're in the mid-cycle. Let's say you're about update 2 or 3. Can you turn a waiver in? Yes, it is only good for the remainder of that cycle. So once you start all over, waiver has to start all over. You either at the end of the waiver process, you either have to reapply for that waiver, have developed a solution, or it's just no longer needed. Some things we generally approve are the delay of the submission of the initial DSSR. Some things that sometimes occur, you get a new superintendent that walks in the door and he or she wants to change everything. So you may want to delay that whole process as you reinvent that wheel. 1,500 minutes a week. Let's say you've got a teacher that's teaching an extra block. She's getting paid for it, but you still need a waiver. One of my districts was doing that, had to straighten them out. 4 preps. The law, the regulation specifically says 3 preps. So if you're giving them that extra class or you're making them teach an extra content, you still need a waiver. Class size. The high school class size is 35. I believe elementary is like 30-ish. But if you need to exceed that for whatever that reason is, you need to have a waiver in place. Now, one district asked me, can you waive the 120-hour seat private for high school credit? No. I'm not waiving 120-hour seat credit. There's some other ways to get flexibility, but I'm not going to do a straight-out waiver for that because it opens up too many other things to go wrong. But there are a lot of things you can get waivers for. This is not an all-inclusive list. There's still other options, but you don't know to ask. So where do I submit a waiver at? So if you go to our state accountability website, we have consolidated some things onto a one-stop shop for you. So there's an online waiver form that when you see this presentation in Google, that is a live link to it. Everything you need is in one place. So everything I'm talking about today is in one place for you to go and get it. So no longer having to go over here and submit there, put it there, all in one spot. It's all going in one entry point. Regardless if you're using the number sign or if you're using GEMS as your entry point to the DSSR, it's still all in one spot. School of Innovation waiver. This one everybody starts looking at all talks about. So State Law 59-19-350 speaks to the statutes of School of Innovation. You're supposed to identify each state statute, regulation, or local district policy for which the school is requesting an exemption. The local school board must approve with 2/3 vote. Superintendent must submit the request to the State Department of Education for approval. Schools cannot exempt from state and federal laws and constitutional provisions regarding discrimination, health, safety, civil rights, and disability rights that are applied to other public schools. Minimum attendance for student attendance requirements, state assessments, and certification from core academic areas. This is where people were licking their chops early on because it said you could exempt up 25% of your staff, comma, except the core academic areas as defined by No Child Left Behind. Everybody got to that comma and wanted to stop. But no. And yet part of that is special ed. That's a no-go to begin with. And so folks that applied for it, we had to go and correct them because special ed is a no-go. This law doesn't apply because federal law reigns everything. So this one gets a little tricky. The School of Innovation must include, again, what you're looking to get out, what you're looking for a waiver for. Identify how the flexibility will support student academic achievement for students and the profile of the South Carolina graduate. Documentation of a public board meeting and disclose the financial model to be used. I didn't figure out what the financial model to be used is. Nobody's dared me yet to go and look at it. I don't know what it means. Get creative. I'm not sure. But during the waiver years, things are due by July 1st. Demonstration of compliance with that financial model and a report the academic achievement of its students. So, a situation we had, somebody had a School of Innovation waiver. After 3 years, nothing improved. Why are we submitting it again? If you want to get creative, maybe you're in a district that maybe supports Boeing or supports Volvo or supports BMW. Maybe y'all got something creative going on. This might be a way around it. Maybe you need economical physics of the airplane or something. You need somebody out of certification to teach that class. You may be able to go for this waiver. The only part of that waiver, this is not something I do by myself. I have to run it with some other offices. The hardest office to get it across is educator services. Because if an educator is uncertified and in this waiver, it means that they didn't get their fingerprints done by our office. Which means you can have people come in, SLED get some things, but not everything. The one thing that can't lie is your thumbprint. And if you have an uncertified staff member on this waiver, hey, I did a SLED check, fantastic. We didn't run fingerprints. That's a whole other level of security. So it's hard for me to convince educator services that we need to go this route when they've got all the opportunities available to be certified. Everybody can be certified by the Pope, and that's a little questionable too. I think he can get certified as well. So lots of options. So School of Innovation is a little bit harder to do, but challenging. I'm always up for a good challenge, so let's give it a try and see what happens. How do you submit a School of Innovation waiver? Same spot, it's a one-stop shop. Go to our website, go to the online waiver form, hit School of Innovation School of Innovation, and what you'll do is you'll put in your waiver request and all the information, and it comes to us in a form stack. It's very easy to do. All right, let's talk about some flexibility plans. Proficiency-based system plan. So Regulation 43-234 states that districts can seek a proficiency-based system plan, which is called a PBS. Schools may offer credit through a PBS. Let me first state, this is for our high school only, grades 9 through 12. 9 through 12 only. You can do correct types of credit, initial credit, credit recovery, and credit through prior knowledge. There are 2 districts in the state that do not have a PBS plan, and I do not buy their story. Everybody is offering credit recovery. You can't tell me not. If you have credit recovery going on, you should have a PBS plan that addresses it. Everybody should. Information in that PBS plan that we're asking about is what goals in the DSSR participate in the decision for a PBS plan. What evidence will you use to demonstrate that you've met these goals? How will you determine proficiency? And describe how the district is ensuring the compulsory attendance goals will be met. The following areas within your district offering a PBS, adult ed. So if you have an adult ed program that's offering a high school diploma, they're probably using PBS and you don't know it. Alternative schools. Used to be there. I can tell you right now, your alternative schools are running PBS. They can't have a kid come in October failing U.S. history, and the high school principal says, I need them to pass. We need to get that credit, that EOC. They've got a 30 in the course. We got a lot of work to do, especially when junior can't read. I promise you, alternative schools doing PBS. I did it, my district didn't know it. It's what we had to do, it's the way we were set up and how we helped kids. Credit recovery program, y'all are all doing credit recovery. Initial credit program. These are the kids that come in that have funky schedules that maybe they come in with a class that you can't offer in your catalog. Mastery-based exam, and any other program where you're altering requirements for offering high school credit. All PBS materials are submitted in that form stack. Your district must submit a PBS plan along with their DSSR. That is due April 30th. The initial PBS plan is good for the life of the cycle. So you do it all the first time. That's your initial plan. Evaluation. You get to a new cycle, new PBS plan. Where can you find that? You can find it, again, in a online form stack, again, one-stop shop. Possibilities. Initial credit for scheduling conflicts. Transferring students in that courses aren't in the catalog. So let's say you get a kid from Virginia, and he lives right outside the FBI Forensics Lab in Virginia. And he is taking advanced forensics, FBI forensics. And you don't offer that course. Where are you going to go find it? And he's an honors kid, so he's making a 95. You're not going to drop the course. Rolled in October, you're going to try to finish it. So where are we going to go find it? We're going to put him in this type of initial credit to finish out that course so we make sure he gets that credit. Because he's all of our kids, but he's one of our high flyers that you really need to make sure you get them to go to the next spot. Credit recovery, again. Make sure that it's for credit that when you score between a 50 and a 59. We've called in our monitoring, or the guys have called in our monitoring process. When we look at transcripts, people are putting kids into credit recovery when they scored a 35 in the course. If you scored a 35 in the course, you need to start over, junior. Because you didn't understand. And hey, I work in alternative school, and I've asked them, all right, you have a 30 in the course. Did you intentionally go to sleep because you don't give a flip? Or did you lose track after she said, hello, my name is? 99% of the bad boys say, I lost track after she said, hello, my name is. That's honesty. So, but if you've got a 30 in a course, we shouldn't be putting you in credit recovery. We need to start all over. So make sure y'all are following that range of 51 to 59. And that's getting ready to be put in the UGP coming up very shortly because we've had discussions on that. Credit through prior knowledge. This one's going to be a new one and y'all are going to love it. You can give kids credit for taking an exam for the knowledge that they know. Let's start talking about our kids who speak Spanish. Come in from Venezuela and hola, como está very well. And what do we do to them? We put them in Spanish 1. Why? That's like putting them back in kindergarten. Can they not take a test? Can they not take that STAMPS test and get themselves out of Spanish 1? Maybe out of Spanish 2. And get credit for those courses and move on to Spanish 3 where they are more proficient. Think outside the box.
Okay, so that's competency-based. So do we have tests that have been...
Competency-based, that's a whole other thing we're going to get to in a second.
Okay, well, maybe in that definition, but my old state's definition, that's what that is. Okay. What tests are we using to
the district. I know. So my couple of districts that are doing this right now, Lexington 1, Lexington 2, York 3, Spartanburg 3, are all using a version of the STAMPS test to determine what proficiency level is and whether or not they're moving a kid out of Spanish 1 and Spanish 2.
But I could just have a Spanish 1 teacher create an exam and then say that if you pass that, you get credit.
You guys as a group have to determine what proficiency means. You have to submit that to me for my team to look at and get that right. And then
We submit the test to you.
yes.
If somebody was doing it.
Yes. In that form where you will put in, you will fill out your proficiency based plan, you're going to explain all of that in that space.
But with the staff, we don't have them qualifies as a good proficiency test.
It is a good proficiency test. If you're going to, again, explain your plan, you know, using stamps, this is what y'all determine as proficient for Spanish 1 or Spanish 2, whatever it is y'all decide what proficiency is. That's where the regulation comes in. It says the district determines proficiency. Now, proficiency doesn't mean the kid finishes the course in 48 hours because you used AI and you get to move on. No. Is there flexibility in the 120 hours? Notice I didn't say anything about that. Can a kid finish a course in 110 hours? Sure. The alternative school, kids can finish a course in 110 hours. Why? Because all the little nutheads aren't running around and he's not distracted. He's in a room with 3 or 4 other kids and a staff member. He can finish that course in 110 hours. But you can't let him go. That's the downside because of your compulsory attendance policy. If he finishes class at 110 hours, still 20 hours to go, you must do something with him. If he's in a lab and he's in alternative school, guess what he's doing? He's picking up the other courses he's still struggling in. I still haven't done a class. He's still getting credit for the class, getting attendance for the class. He's just picking up other areas he's still struggling to finish out his other courses. Or he's starting in something new. But you can't let him go because of the 180 compulsory attendance days of the United States. Does that make sense?
So for the mastery test, the example that you gave was our ELL students. If they are brought in and they have Spanish 1, can they take that? Can they test out before they even start the course, and then they can get something new in that same semester, or would they still need? Am I explaining that?
Forward, let me see if I captured it.
Okay. Let's say it was before the 10-day drop.
So what I would suggest is best practice. Let's say we're talking about Spartanburg 3 about this. They're testing kids that they know that can pass this test. They're not everybody. Not everybody from Venezuela speaks up to a level to test out. So you know which ones you're talking about.
Yeah.
They're talking about doing that test during freshman orientation. Bringing them in and getting this done. If they meet the proficiency, then we move them out of Spanish 1, put them into Spanish 2, and then we're not having to worry about it.
Right. That's what I was wondering if, like, you know, they could take that, like you said, the orientation or something, so they're not even having to go through the hassle of getting into the class, and then they find out that they can do that, and then they're behind in the next class, and it's just crazy.
You'll explain all of that in your proficiency.
Right.
This is where I talk about, this isn't just a one-stop shop. I'm just giving you an idea. Lexington 1 is looking at math. Lexington 2 is looking at math. They've got issues in math they want to try to do something with. They've got some kids coming in that have some skills that they want to try to come up with something. They're not there yet, but I'm having conversations with them. I don't know all of you know what your comprehensive needs assessment says. I don't know what your report cards are, where your weaknesses are. How do we get these kids credit? How do we get kids that need to move forward?
Please teach the classes.
I'm thinking if a kid grew up and his daddy was a welder and he knows how to weld, am I gonna make him do welding 1 and he can test out of it?
I'm going to say at least write it down and send it to me. What's the worst thing I'm going to tell you? Where are you at now? No. So what's the difference, Now, can you? I would say there are probably some lab requirements that would be iffy. I would have to run that by the CT office because that's not my area of expertise. But somebody else will be able to give us some feedback. Our goal is not to always tell you no. Our goal is how can we help you get to where you need to go? I like to get to a yes every single time. So if if it's welding, you might have a good reason for it. Y'all might be, I don't know, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is a good reason why you might need one. So put it in the proficiency place plan and ask.
That would also be good for like cosmetology too, because we have a lot of girls and guys that grow up with their families doing hair and nails and all that kind of stuff.
So most people do. Now you start getting into those program requirements and so many hours and this, that, and the other that I can't speak to. But you want to make sure that they are at a certain level. But well, again, what's the worst thing I'm going to say? No. All right. Well, you're already at no now.
For theirs, they have an internship that is required.
Yeah.
I just wonder if they could say the actual classroom setting could be exempted and they still do the internship because it's outside the classroom.
All I can say is give it a try. I don't know until you put something on paper. And I pulled when your letters will say when we get to the end, and when you turn these things in, you will eventually get a letter that your DSSR is cleared, your GT plan is cleared, your PBS plan is cleared. It'll all be in one letter. It may take us a little longer to get there because we've changed our structure and how we're doing things. But with that being said, as your plan waits, I've got a PBS team running and looking at that scope while Pat and my other side of the house is working on the DSSR piece. So it just really depends what you write down, and it could take longer. It could be no right now, and we're having more conversations. It took Spartanburg 3 almost a year to get to a yes. We kept asking questions, and they come back, and it takes a minute. But their teachers, Wendy told me the other day, their teachers were in tears because we finally said yes. We're just excited to be able to give some credit that came in with some knowledge that nobody else had. So think outside the box. Words of wisdom. When using a PBS class, the student must enroll in all the course after completion of the class. Again, it's about that 180-day compulsory law. They just can't go home. You go home and you just screwed up your attendance. They have to enroll in something else or stay in that lab and continue working on other things. Remember that attendance counts every day. So yes, the Office of Student Services or Student Support sits in on the PBS team and they look at those things. So attendance is every day and it counts. Determine the district standard for proficiency. You were asking that question, Amanda, about what it is. Determine what's proficient. What's proficient for you might not be proficient for somebody else. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. I don't know. You know your situation. Think outside the box. Again, what's the worst thing I can say? Be clear. Provide details and be explicit. My team and I have to read 1,000 DSSR plans. Not only your districts, but every school in between. Then we're breaking out the initial PBS plans, the evaluations. GT goes somewhere else, but we have a lot to read, and our goal is to get it done. What is it done? What is it, Pat? July 1? Is that our goal? 1,000 plans by July 1. They all start to run together. And the minute I have to write all these notes and send it to you and wait for you to get your plan takes longer and longer and longer to get across the finish line. So the more clear you can be, the more explicit you can be, the better off you are. So what if my district has a plan, but we need to add more information to it? This can be done through an annual evaluation. No reason to write the whole entire thing. There's a spot down there where you can make adjustments. Say, hey, we're doing this, we're trying that. When your district rewrites the new DSSR, the PBS will be rewritten to include that new information. What if my district's PBS plan does not address credit recovery and be addressed through the annual evaluation? And what if I need to see another district's PBS plan and have a friend? Greenville's got a lot of options. They have a lot of fast track, slow track, thinking about being on a track. They have lots of plans. They have like 5 ways to think. But there were just a lot of things. They had a lot of options. Lexington 1, again, Lexington 1 is doing the world language. Lexington 2 is beginning to play with world language, but they're also playing with math. And then, like I said, York 3 is playing with world language, and Spartanburg 3 came along with world language. So a lot of friends you can reach out to. All right, competency-based education. So I said PBS was grades 9 through 12. Competency-based is not my wheelhouse. I will go ahead in a minute. It is takes about 9, maybe 12. With that being said, state law 5919-360 says that if a school district or school is seeking to implement a competency-based education, the State Board of Education may exempt the school from state laws, policies, and regulations that hinder the implementation of certain competency-based practices. A district that wishes to obtain an exemption may submit a waiver and the State Board of Education to the State Board of Education in format described by our agency. Things that must be considered in that application must be approved by the local board of trustees, must be aligned to the DSSR, and provide for the implementation of the strategies described in the waiver application for all students at the school, which may be implemented over a period of 5 or fewer years. So your PBS is the life of your DSSR cycle. CBE is not necessarily the life of your DSSR cycle. A little bit of difference. One is K-1s 9 through 12, the other one's the whole entire system. The district must show evidence of the meaningful steps already taken to engage parents and community stakeholders. A district must also include a continued plan to seek parental outreach and consultation using the guidelines provided by the State Board of Education when submitting a waiver application for approval by its local board of trustees and the State Board of Education, or the application may not be considered. A district whose waiver application is approved may request additional exemptions and may request amendments to its current approved waiver on a rolling basis. It also says that a competency-based education is designed to improve the educational outcomes of all students by advancing their mastery of concepts and skills. The competency-based system in South Carolina must align with the profile of the South Carolina graduate, which may include the following principles. This is where we get different. PBS, 9 through 12, kind of static with their courses. CBE could be the whole entire system, and you're basing it on the competency profile of South Carolina graduate, two separate things. It's taken me a long time to get to that point in my mind because some of them are very similar. But what it's allowing you to do that the PBS doesn't allow you to do, again, PBS very static, CBE, the kid may teach a skill here, and he may need one way to show it to the rest of the class, and then maybe he not master that skill until way later in the year. With our high school course is very static. They have 90 days or so to get that course done, give or take a little bit of flexibility depending on issues, but for the most part it's very static and it fits in a box. CBE allows you to demonstrate that over a period of time, over the course of a whole entire year, instead of just a static piece. Assessments can be meaningful and used to personalize experience with a student. So again, you may be taking a standard test. You could be doing it through project-based. You could be doing it some other way. There are lots of options in here. Who can apply? The CBE waiver is available in any South Carolina district. The CBE waiver does not apply to individual schools. If a school is interested in the waiver, we encourage them to reach out to the district personnel. To learn more about the flexibilities, with these guides, they're being updated as we speak. Talk about all the different the options that are available. So the process and how this will look. PBS kind of looks the same way. What will happen is you will enter through a form stack. You'll get a message back from us that we received your information. The team will take a look at your information and make sure it meets all the requirements. Then we get down to somebody will get back with you if there are any revisions. If there are any revisions that need to be made, then we can skip on over and write our final letter to get out to you guys and say, hey, you're good to go. So most times there is some back and forth with these plans. Now, the CBE folks, they're in the Office of Personalized Learning. They have training sessions and cohorts. You need to go and look up their office specifically to learn more about what they do. That's a little more complex than the PBS. But with the CBE, there are some flexibilities in there, and Kristen Logan, who's in charge of that team, will be able to help you through that process. Whoop. Okay, just kidding. Get backwards and it still goes forward. That don't work. Let's try again. All right, Clint, what'd I do? I can talk. So your CBE application is in the same spot same form statement and everything else. Again, trying to get to that one-stop shop, one entry point in and do everything you need. Those boxes where that stuff is dropped into every single day, so it's about a 24-hour turnaround time before you submit something to when we can get you a first response that, hey, we received it, we've got it, we're gonna take a look at it. You get there? It's okay.
Unplugged and plugged back in.
It's okay. All right, what questions do we have? Are y'all still flabbergasted about the whole predatory criminology?
Oh, yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So, we're in the middle of our strategic planning cycle, so we do evaluation every year for our proficiency-based plan. If you wanted to add, I think you kind of touched on this, but if you wanted to add the STAMP test, which we already use for SEAL evaluation, if you wanted to use that for, students, and, we would just include that in our evaluation that year, or do we need to create another plan?
All of that looks new now, so the questions you're used to have all been updated.
Oh, okay.
So there's section 4. It might take a little longer, you may have to do some back and forth when you put your stamp stuff in, so we can get some of the style. Yes, in that section. All right, what else? Yeah, everything is due April 30th. You can turn it in earlier, it'd be nice, because I got nothing to do between now and April 30th. I'm on something to read. No, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to my office.
Please keep our minutes. Please keep our minutes.
If you not let them sit, I end up creating problems. But again, if you have any questions, you need us to come speak with you. My office and my team and I can come out and do any type of training you need. All you have to do is ask. So what's the worst thing I want to say? No, you already had to know anyway, so what does it matter? I mean, let's try to get you to a yes. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.